All right, aspired leaders, you are in for a conversation with a high impact educator here. If you haven't seen him on social media or you haven't checked him out with Teach Better Team, Phil is amazing. So super stoked to get to learn more about his story and learn about his support groups that he's got going on. He's speaking all over the country. And with that, Phil, thank you so much for being on Inspired Elite.
Joshua, thanks so much for having me. Sincerely grateful to be here. Love what you're doing and what you stand for. So it's just honored to be in the platform. Let's get to it.
Seriously. So I have a dying question. This is very far from our topic today and about you, but I saw somewhere that you were on a Netflix baking show, and I got to ask about that because my interest is piqued. I know there's a story behind that. So Phil, will you just share a little bit about how on earth did you get on Netflix?
It's funny, right? It's not a resume builder, but it's an icebreaker for sure, right? It's fun to talk about. Yeah. So during COVID lockdown, my kids and I got into a show called Nailed It. It's a amateur baking show meant to be a total mishap. You're supposed to flop and do bad. You get a professional cake that took a professional 8 hours and you get 2 hours to do it. Anyways, we loved it. It was comical. And my kids are like, you got to try. I actually love to bake and cook. It's one of my favorite pastimes. Almost became a chef earlier in my life. So they're like, you would do so good. So I ended up trying out, and a year later, they randomly reached out and went through the process and flew me out to LA, and I got to live a dream. I got to be on a set, bunch of cameras, chaos, a little competition, baking, and I had an absolute blast. I blew it, Joshua. I totally blew it. Did not win, but had the time of my life. It was just, one of those opportunities that, just come your way and you have to jump on it. So super grateful. And yeah, it's a great story to tell. And my kids were not happy with me that I did not win the $10,000, but it is what it is. I lost gracefully, and they learned that lesson, I guess,
Well, you said everyone that goes on is supposed to fail. So I think you kind of knew the assignment and did exactly what you're supposed to.
I did. I lived up to its name. So yeah, it was super cool opportunity. And it was cool. My son actually called me on it because I told him originally, like, I'm not going to try out. So many people must do that. And he pulled me, I'm a youth motivational speaker as well as speaking to adults, educators. But he's like, you're always telling me to take healthy risks and put myself out there, Dad. And I'm like, all right. Eating crow here. I'll do it. And then it, ended up working. So he was right. He pushed me.
Hey, he's listening and turning your wisdom back on you. So that's what you want from your kids, right? Maybe not in the moment. You kind of begrudgingly accept it, but in the long term, it's like, yeah, you're actually listening to my wisdom. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, Phil. I love that story. I know there's probably a transition that we can have as far as your lessons learned from Netflix to your role in education. But before we do that, I want to talk about just all the wonderful things that you're doing. You said it a little bit already. You speak to youth, you speak to adults, but you also are a teacher and have been in education. So will you just share with my listeners in regards to your educational and leadership journey?
Yeah, 100%. Kind of leading from the whole baking and cooking idea is 17 years old, woke up after working in a bunch of restaurants that I thought I was going to be a classically trained chef, realized that it was not a career for me. It was just something I like to do at home. Lucky for me, I had an amazing junior year chemistry teacher, Mr. B, who I felt super comfortable with and was just transparent. Told him I'm kind of freaking out. I thought I was going to cook my whole life. I definitely don't want to do that. I don't know what to do. And luckily, he knew me so well, better than I knew myself, and said, you seem to really like science. I mean, you're getting good grades. You do well. Do you like learning about science? Absolutely. And then he said, you seem to really like being here. Not everybody wants to be in high school. I said, no, I love it, man. I love being with everybody. I like seeing the ladies. I like, being involved and everything. He's like, this school spirit, this love, this vibe, this could be your career, man. You could literally be in this environment for a career if you wanted. And I think you'd be great at it. And it was like a light bulb. So that was it. 17 years old. Luckily, had a great school system, great counselors, and they're like, hey, this is what you do. This is where you go. Ended up at Illinois State University. And Joshua, if you're not in Illinois, guy. That's like 1 in 4 teachers in Illinois are from Illinois State University. They're the
Oh, wow.
Redbirds. So it was like a no-brainer. Like, hey, that's where you need to go. Went to college, got my degree in chemistry with a teaching certificate. I definitely wanted to have the full-fledged chemistry degree just to have the chops, and ended up student teaching in a wonderful place. And I've been there for 19 years now, Joshua. I teach chemistry and physics and English language learning, physical science as well.
So you've been in the same building for 19 years?
Isn't that crazy, man? Yeah. 19 years, 2 rooms, but same building. So the first 8 years, 1 room, and then these last 11 in another room. But it is
Wow.
crazy to think, man. I'm looking back. 19 years flew by.
So what's the secret there, Phil? Because that's unusual. I mean, I've talked to a lot of folks, and even
Yeah.
my own journey. I've been in 4 campuses, multiple districts, and that's it seems like nowadays folks are just popping around in different districts
Yeah.
and different schools to find the best fit for themselves. And for you, what do you think contributed to staying in the same building for 19 years?
Yeah, I would have to say the department like I work in with my science department is like my family. So they're my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, my work wives and husbands, right? I just think we lean on each other, and it's like I couldn't imagine. I always said if I ever left like that job, I would never be able to go to another school. I think they ruined me. I'm spoiled there. I have such a family. I couldn't imagine like going to another building. So yeah, it's been a great ride. And as you know, education's seen some ups and downs recently. So we've been hanging on tight to each other, white knuckling it, and thank goodness, the people you surround yourself with is so important. The kids are amazing, and kids are kids, but after 4 years they move on, and most of
Yep.
them, you're just a thought in the past. But the crew you work with day in and day out, year after year, I mean, that's family. So I have to
Yeah.
attribute it to that 100%.
No, it's so important, and I can only imagine how you are seen within the community too. I mean, it's fun to see brothers and sisters, and you're starting to see generations of folks, and
Yes.
I can only imagine how impactful that is to have that stability in the community.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's cool to be a part of it, a small piece in a big puzzle. And like you said, generations. I haven't had my student's child yet, but I think
It's
that's
coming,
maybe
man.
where you're headed. I have had some of my like people I've graduated with in high school. I've had a couple of their kids that I
Yeah.
didn't, expect, but I'm not there yet, but it's coming. I know it's coming. So it's all good though. It'll be great to have that, like you said, that generational
Yeah.
uh, review.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, Phil, you had talked about just the struggle the last few years. I think a lot of folks obviously have felt that as there's twists and turns that have occurred throughout the country and throughout the world. And I know one of your deepest passions is really helping restore passion with the teaching community. So, will you talk on that as to where that came from? Did you see a need somewhere, or like where did this come from, and how are you helping other teachers flourish in their profession?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. I'd have to say, when COVID lockdown happened and we went virtual for quite a while, as everybody did, I'll be completely honest. After about 2 months of that, started looking on LinkedIn and thinking, well, maybe this is it for me. Maybe it's time to do something else. I'm an extreme extrovert, and human connection is like I crave it, and if I don't get it, I'm pretty low and down and out. So I found myself at a pretty low place in my life and my career for sure. And I was craving more. Luckily, things eventually got back, and that never quite the same, but things got back and we're getting there. And I just really started to think about, okay, what can I do that's in my control to allow myself to be the best possible version of me, to try to feel happier, to allow myself to be more resilient. And I was very lucky being a youth speaker. Part of the thing we talk about is a lot of personal development with youth. So my co-speaker Matt and I, we really leaned on each other and say, let's make sure we're living out exactly what we talk to youth about. So I started doing all the things he needed to, taking care of myself, surrounding myself with positive people. But as I saw this happening and just people getting more and more burned out, cynical, I really started to feel a tug on my heartstrings that like I think a lot of educators need more support and help. And I don't know if they've got that family like I do at my school or in my close community of friends that I have and work with. So I started really digging into positive psychology and like what allows people to be happy and flourish. Got so into it, I ended up getting my positive education certification through the Flourishing Center and really just trying to look at the science behind what allows people to be happy, what allows them to flourish. And the more I knew about that and the more I applied to my life, the more energized I was, the more resilient I felt. And I just felt like, man, I need to help other educators do this. So that's what I'm called to do and what I've been slowly working on. Now, Joshua, if you know anything about branding, I'm not supposed to be doing this, right? I can't be a youth speaker over here with my best bud and
Right.
then over here be a speaker to educators because that confuses people. They say the riches are in the niches. Like every branding company would say, Phil, you're not doing that right. You're going to confuse people. But I sincerely don't care. Like I love helping youth and Matt and I build their confidence, but I cannot ignore my brothers and sisters in the classroom. Like they're hurting, they're exhausted, they're
Yes.
overwhelmed. So that's what I love to do. I love to go to schools, pour into them, talk about these are the simple, tangible things that we can do. I talk about your ERS, the things that light you up. And I'm not talking about your lesson plans. I'm not talking about your pedagogy, even though that's all important. I'm talking about you, yourself. What are the things that light you up? How are you building that into your everyday schedule? So we go through that. What lights us up? How do you build it daily? Focus on you first. Then once we're overflowing, we can pour into people more. And I think educators are givers. They're selfless. And because of that, they feel selfish when they start focusing on them because they're
Yep.
so not used to it. But I tell them, you're worthless to us. If you're burned out, we need you. So if you got to back up a little bit and take care of you, we have to do that. So give them the permission, give them the tangible steps. And then from there, how do we restore our passion? I like to say that we lean into our purpose. So all of us have unique, special gifts. For me, like I just love to cook and bake. I try to bring that into the classroom. For me, that lights me up, like creating a little breakfast for my students and them seeing me as a human and us being around like a lab table, eating some pancakes. It becomes a family, and all of a sudden, I'm no longer just the guy who teaches chem, but I'm a human. I'm Phil. I have feelings. I connect, and from there, it restores my passion and that human connection that I need and crave in order to stay in this into this career. If I'm not getting that, it doesn't feed me enough anymore. So again, I always say that, but saying I'm not telling you got to make pancakes, but I'm saying all of you, Joshua, you've got something that you love to do, and it probably has nothing to do with, maybe an education or a classroom or whatever, but how can we bring that to people that we work with? How can we bring that to our classroom? And when we do, not only does it build up other people and fill them up, but we really start to see this reciprocating effect of just this upward spiral. I feel good. You feel good. Now I want to make people feel better. So I love doing it. I love people feeling like they're smiling and energized when they leave that keynote. And then I love to stay connected to them so that it's like, hey, this isn't just a talk and you feel good today. Like this is, if you decide right now, you can change your life to build in intentionally the good things so that you're going to overflow. And when you overflow, then you can pour into people instead of just pouring until you drain out. And then you got to take a sick day and, stay in bed all day. So,
yeah. And then feel guilty about doing that.
yes. Yeah. It's like damned if you do and damned if you don't, then
Yep.
no one wants that for anybody. And I think sometimes we're our toughest on ourselves. I think we're worried that's how it's going to be interpreted. And I think nowadays, no one's saying that. It's like, no, if you need a day, take a day
For
because the
real.
kids need you for sure.
Yeah. Phil, it's like almost like a passion project, right? Like this podcast honestly was my passion project. I was administrator for 10 years and I needed something, an outlet of some way to have my creative juices flowing. And I felt like I was serving other people. And I mean, it's grown a lot more than I anticipated at the time, but I mean, it did make me feel better every time I had these conversations. It was kind of like exercise for the mind. And then I was a better person going in the next day because I was energized by the conversation I just had with excellent guests like yourself, Phil. So I love that that lighting up piece. I can just visualize that. When my teachers had an initiative or a project that they came and we said yes to, and they were so excited about, and practically running out of the front office. So I want to talk a little bit about your journey. I know everyone's story and passions are different, but you had talked about during the pandemic of being low, right? You're an extrovert, you didn't have that connection. So during that time, I'm guessing that you started to go through this process of trying to figure out, like, how do I restore myself? How do I get past this burnout feeling?
Yeah.
How do I not go on LinkedIn and look for a different job? So what was lighting you up beyond just cooking?
Yeah, I really started to dig into, and again, I like to call my ers, like, what are the things I do? And of those things, so I love being a father.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I was very intentional about, all right, I have this time with my kids that we are together a lot. We can't go anywhere. Let's make the absolute best of this. So we started planning like vacations in the house. And so again, diving deeper into my family, that filled me up. I'm definitely a baker and a cook, so I leaned on that side of me. I got into yeast breads. I was never good at making breads. So again, the silly examples, but actually make a huge impact on your mental psyche. Joshua, as you said, your podcast was a passion project that you didn't even probably realize. Not only did it fill you up, but like, think about how you were bringing that energy and pouring into others then. And it had, maybe the conversation you had on your podcast had absolutely nothing to do with what you did that day at your job, but that doesn't mean it doesn't impact it, and that those skills aren't transferable. Even if, as a podcast host, I'm sure you become, like, you have rambling people like me, become a great listener. But think about that. Think about that value that is in a role where you're a leader. I mean, so that's what I always try to promote, is that when I was digging into myself, I was definitely focused on my health, right? I like, how do I take care of myself so when we come out of this, I don't end up super unhealthy with super bad habits. And I think a lot of us struggled with that a little bit. I think some of us started happy hour earlier and more frequently, and some of us watched more TV than we ever had before. So I think keeping myself in check, but again, those ers. I'm a creator, I'm a supporter, I'm a father. I guess I can't say husbander, but whatever you want to call it. So those things are the things I leaned on when, on all sincerity, education at that time was not filling me up. And I think we're all clear. It certainly wasn't filling students up. I mean, there were black screens and it was dark in their rooms, and it was awkward and uncomfortable, and no one knew how hard to push because everyone was worried about everyone. It was just a mess, and you couldn't fix that. So other things I leaned on, and just like you said, you gained energy from those, and that overflowed into the job to pull you through and ride through that storm.
Yep. So if someone's in a storm right now and they're feeling hopeless, they're feeling burnt out, I know you speak on this a lot. So are there any strategies that you would recommend for those who are listening?
Absolutely. First of all, it's finding your people, but your people that are positive, that aren't so gone and so cynical that there's no turning back, right? Because if you choose to surround yourself with those people, you'll be right there with them. Absolutely. So sometimes we have to make the hard decisions of who we choose to surround ourselves with and what we fill our minds with, right?
Yeah.
And I never want to say, that I'm toxically positive or that I'm Pollyanna on anything, but sometimes we just out of our control what a situation is, but we can control what we do next, how we respond, and we can focus on what we control. So people surround yourself with, and the information you digest, whether that's how you digest news, learning, podcasts, media, whatever it is. I think that was a huge thing I would say right away too, is how are you filling your brain? And then from there, I sound like a broken record, but I would immediately go back to, if right now it's the school room that, the classroom that you're struggling with, and you're in a dark place with it and you're struggling and not sure if you're going to continue to do this or not. I think, like you said, decluttering things that you don't have to do in your life to make room, and then make something new, create a new challenge. And if it's overwhelming to do it in the classroom, then do it in your personal life. Everybody leans on, hey, I don't know, train for a 5K, right? Health is an easy one to lean on, but there's so much you can do. Start writing a book, start journaling, so whatever it is that interests you that maybe you never gave yourself permission to do, I would say start trying something new to just give yourself a little energy boost. Then once you get that momentum and you start to feel a little more filled up, you're going to be a little bit more resilient. You're going to be a little less irritable, a little less cynical. And then you're going to be allowed to start actually looking at like, okay, what am I doing here in my job? How am I supporting students? What's in my control? What's out of my control? What is my ego impacting, that's making it harder versus what's really going on? But you've got to get that start. And I think a lot of people would say, that's super easy. There's nothing rocket science about that. And that's true. There isn't. We get so stuck sometimes that we just get in this routine that we don't even realize is just unhappy, but that we can control that routine. We can change it. And when we do, we start to see results. So that's what I love to do, though. I love to remind people of that. Like, hey, no one said you had to do this at this time every single day. You could get rid of that or move it. I mean, obviously we have contractual hours. That's a different story, but within our lives, Beyonce gets a lot done in a day, Josh. We can too, right?
She's amazing. We can't compare ourselves to her.
Yeah, and she's got professional schedulers, right? We don't have someone making 150,000 schedule in our day for us, but
and a professional cook and someone that helps her in the gym. I mean, come on.
Wow.
All right, buddy. So I want to talk about what you are going around the country and speaking on. You touched on this a little bit, but if there's a leader right now, either a campus leader or a district leader that's like, man, this is exactly what my staff needs to listen to right now. What would they be bringing you in to speak on? What is it that you absolutely love to share with other educators?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Hands down, it would be basically what we've just kind of walked through. I'd love to come, give that keynote to actually lift up and energize everybody and plant that seed of hope. So building your ERS, build it into your daily schedule, find your passions, lean into them, bring them into the classroom. Once we start getting that positive momentum, what I love to do then is I love to talk with just educators in the building and talk about what are the things that you feel are holding you back versus the things that are helping. And like, let's get it all out there. Let's vomit it up. And then let's look at like, what is sincerely here? And then I love to meet with admin too. What are your needs and wants that you really need to get done? And then I love to bridge that gap because a lot of times I know we're adults, but a lot of adults struggle with tough conversations. But when we have them, it's often way more solvable than I think most people think. It's so funny. I have a teacher who's helping a student, stud athlete, working through an injury, and that student, she's been coming late to my class 5 minutes every day with a pass. And the teacher finally, like, she's so busy, said, "I'm so sorry. I've been working out her hip for this huge run. I was worried because she's coming 5 minutes late to your class every day. And then I saw it was you, and I'm like, oh, well, you would tell me if it's a problem." And I said, yeah, I wouldn't go to my superior and say, hey, they're doing this. I would, as an adult, I would just tell you. But you know what? That actually doesn't happen a lot in buildings. I think people are not comfortable or confident enough. They don't want to see confrontational. So what I love to do is, all right, teachers, there's no admin here. Let's have it. What is the issue? I know it's going to be time. Okay, let's put it on there, right? And but by having those two separate, but then coming together and kind of being that mediator of, hey, this is what teachers are saying. This isn't harsh feelings. This is sincerely the two perspectives. But I bet there's a way to intermingle those more. And when we have those conversations, we feel more supported, more valued, and more energized and aligned. And I think that's what it is. I think no one wants to ruffle any feathers. And because of that, people don't feel aligned and they feel hurt and unheard, even though we all have the opportunity to speak up if we want to. Just no one is comfortable doing it, and that could be for a variety of reasons. So
Oh yeah.
again, coming in, I'd love that, man. Just injecting the energy and then trying to be the guy with the bad haircut that's here with the white flag. Like, hey, I'm here to make this better. I want you guys to mesh well. How can we make this place better? But you feel valued. You feel valued. Let's reach our goals so that we all are on the same page. And let's drop the boxing gloves and let's just come together and figure this out. Because when we're together, kids are going to win. And I mean, obviously, that's why we're here. We're here to help kids win. So that's one of my passions. I love doing it. And man, if anybody's ever could use that, it would be my honor and pleasure and privilege to be a part of that.
No, I think Phil, that's so important. Like just having that third party there, someone who's in a neutral space, and there is a power dynamic. Like that's kind of the elephant in the room, right? I mean, so a lot of times people don't want to rock the boat in that sense because you're seen, regardless of if you try to make it seem that way or not, you're seen as the boss, you're seen as the superior. And so to have someone come in and kind of balance that out, I think is super powerful. So love that work that you're doing. I also want to touch base on something that I absolutely love, because it's not just like you're going to the campus once and you're done, but you also have support beyond that, which is a program called Positive Growth Lounge. And I'd love for you to speak on this and kind of share more about what this program's, how it's supporting other educators and how you're going beyond just the one and done speech.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I love my Positive Growth Lounge family. So because of this, me looking on LinkedIn during COVID, and I'm looking for my people, but my people, as you know, Joshua, I've been with for 19 years. So we all think pretty much alike now. So I thought, what a great thing, because everyone got used to virtual, and love it or hate it, at least we're somewhat comfortable with it. So what a wonderful thing it would be for educators to just come together from all across the country to meet up twice a month and just focus on us, our needs. So I created the Positive Growth Lounge, and it's a membership where we meet twice a month on Wednesdays. We got educators from Florida, from Texas, Central Illinois, etc. We're coming in with different ideas and perspectives, and I'm like the guy who runs it so that you can just show up and not have to spend any extra energy. So every meeting we have a different theme, SEL style based, positive psychology backed on what we look at. So last week our meeting was on, we audited our day, 24-hour day, and looked at and graded, hey, was this net positive? Was this something that was totally draining us, or was this neutral? And after we did that, now we're kind of messaging back and forth on things we're catching in our day. Before that, we brought up gossip and confidence, and we're going into the pros and cons of gossip and connection and kind of digging that up, and how can we do positive gossip to shift it just a little bit. So anyways, it's a great way to come together with educators, feel good, feel supported, totally feel heard in a non-judgmental way that, obviously it's just fully transparent. And it feels so good at the end of the meeting every Wednesday, just like, man, these are just good people who want to help kids and want to make sure that they're taking care of themselves as well. So yeah, I love it. It's a membership that everyone's welcome to come to. Anyone who hears this is interested, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love for you to be a guest for a meeting just to see if it's organically your fit. And if we're too hippy dippy weird for you, I totally get that too, man. We're not, everybody's not for everybody, but we're here to support and grow together and just run ideas off of each other, but focus on ourselves first so that we can pour into others.
Well, if anyone's watching this video, you don't look hippie at all, Phil. So I can't imagine that group being like that. So, all right, man, we're winding down our conversation. Although I feel like I could talk to you for another hour. I asked this question for all my guests because it's one thing to listen to all this wonderful wisdom and insight, but it's another to take action, right? So, if there's an actionable item they can do tomorrow or next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you advise them to do?
Hands down, I'm a human that fully believes in a schedule. First step I would take if they're looking to be happier is I'd simply just look at how they spend their day every day and in the slots they can control. If it's something that they're just in the habit of doing that they don't really need, I'd encourage them to declutter it, get rid of it, and either just leave it open and spend time with yourself or your family, or put something in there and replace it that's going to allow you to feel more positive, something that's going to build you up. I sincerely believe you have to start with the little wins and momentum before we can start tackling the really, really big stuff. And education has overwhelmingly big things to tackle, and things I don't know if we'll ever fully tackle because humans are complex. But the more we take care of ourselves in those little tiny steps you build in every day, you're going to feel stronger and stronger. You're going to feel more and more resilient, more uplifted and positive, and that's going to allow you to get hungry for better positive change. So start with that. Look at your day and make sure, don't be shameful about it, be ashamed, but if you're wasting time or doing something just out of habit, let's fix it and fill something else that's better for you.
Yeah, man. Do something that's fun for yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe cook pancakes for your kids or play Christmas music in July. It doesn't matter. Like whatever's going to bring you happiness, get out there and do it. That's the real thing about it.
And I don't know if you know this, but I'm a huge, huge Christmas song fan. So Christmas in July music is totally my jam, brother.
If you see behind me, I got the Christmas story representing with my bobblehead. So I have admitted on this podcast before that it doesn't matter 12 months of the year in my house. You may hear Christmas music, especially if I'm stressed. That's going to be playing. So I have no shame in that. Like I said, if you want to see Phil, he said bad haircut. I think it's rocking. You want to see his tattoos? You definitely check out YouTube. Joshua Stamper is on YouTube, and then of course the Teach Better team. Both of the videos will be posted on those channels, so make sure you go there. Phil, I know you've got your handle on screen, but for those who are listening on the audio podcast formats, how can they connect with you on your website or on social media?
Well, Mr. Stamper, I'm obnoxiously everywhere. If you just can figure out how to spell my last name, you'll find me, Phil Januszewski. But my handle everywhere is just at Phil Januszewski, Januszewski.
All right. So it's a complex last name, as we were talking. It's on the screen. And then also I will have all the links in the show notes. Go to joshstamper.com. I will have every single link. And Phil was saying that there's a lot of links, and it's true. And I would say, though, if you want to see some phenomenal videos, Phil's your guy. So you're on TikTok, and I saw you on Instagram stories the other day. So killing it, man. I love what you're doing. I'm so honored that you were a guest today on Inspire to Lead. And man, I just can't wait to see the impact that you continue to make throughout the country.
Thank you. Your kindness has been fully received. I appreciate your time and energy. Thanks for the opportunity. And it's just great to connect with humans who are looking to make the world a better place. So the feeling's absolutely mutual. Truly enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity.